Now, the last story I'm going to tell you about tonight is of these two men on the right-hand side, James Toomer and Abdullah David Susi, and they carried a dead body for 1,400 miles across Africa in the name of science and to make sure their friend got home. The friend is the gentleman on the left, and this is David Livingstone, the most famous British explorer of the 19th century. During his life, he travels all over Africa, especially East Africa, and his goals are 1, to convert Africans to Christianity, 2, to abolish slavery in Africa, and 3, to discover the source of the Nile. Now, he scores 0 out of 3 on those, but he is still pretty fondly remembered across both continents. From all his wandering about, he does end up finding out a lot about Africa that Europeans didn't know. He's the first European to cross the continent, west to east. He's the first European to see the Masiwatunya, which he calls the Victoria Falls. And he compiles vast amounts of notes on African geography and botany and anthropology and geology. And without James Toomer and David Susi, a lot of those notes would not have survived. Toomer is from the Yao people of Southeast Africa. He is enslaved as a child, and Livingstone frees him when he's 11 and sends him to school in India and starts taking him on his expeditions. Susi is older, he's an adult, and he's hired as a woodcutter originally, so clearing paths for the party and also collecting wood for shelter. Now, when I first imagined these expeditions, when I first started reading about them, I was picturing like 3 intrepid heroes, 1 machete between them, hacking through the undergrowth. It's not like that. On the expedition that they join, there are 200 people on it at some point, and they're from all over the world. There are Africans like themselves, there are porters from the Comoro Islands, there's Arabs like the guide Ben Ali, there are Indian soldiers, and of course there's Europeans like Livingstone. There are buffalo and camels and donkeys and dogs, but by 1873 that party is substantially whittled down to maybe just over a dozen people. Livingstone himself has run out of money and is getting very sick. They build a stretcher to carry him on, but he's in so much pain that they can't carry him very far for long periods of time. And on the 1st of May, 1873, he dies in a place they call Chitambo's village. Now, at this point, things could go very wrong. There's obviously no more money coming in from Livingstone anymore, so the rest of the group could decide to rifle through his stuff and leave them to it, leave them in the middle of nowhere. The people in the village might decide to fine them for bringing someone to their village to die, and they might take his stuff. So at this point, they really take charge. They become what are called the captains of the caravan, and they gather everyone from the group together, and they say, we're going to open all his trunks, and we're going to go through everything, and we're going to make an inventory so we all know what's in there. They also decide to take the body and his notes and make sure they get back to Britain. Now, they don't have a refrigerator, so they have to sort of do a mummification of the body. They cut open his chest and they take out all the wet bits, the heart, the lungs, the guts. They find a blood clot in there the size of your hand, and they bury those where they are in the African village. And they have 2 funerals. They have an English-style one, which they read out, a Christian one. And they also hire a local African mourner to do a local-style funeral. And the song that this guy sings is still, we still have the lyrics for it in translation. It says, "Today the Englishman is dead, who has different hair from ours. Come round to see the Englishman." Livingstone was Scottish. But to be fair, he called himself English all the time, so they weren't to know. They embalm the rest of the body. They pack that chest cavity full of salt. They cover him with brandy. They cover that with bark, and they cover that with tar. And finally, they set off towards the east coast, where they can get a boat to England. Along the way, they have adventures of their own. At one point, a lion eats their donkey in the middle of the night. One time, someone's gun accidentally goes off and it shoots a local person, and they stick around to watch the surgery get done to set this guy's broken leg. Another time, they want to camp for the night, and they are just on the outskirts of a village, so they go and ask if they can stay there, and the locals say no, they bar the gates. They have a look around to see if there's anywhere they can find shelter, and they can't. So they force their way in at gunpoint. The locals flee and basically come back and besiege them inside the village. They hold out for a week, rifle through all the locals' houses, nick their food, kill their animals. And a couple of people are killed in this siege. Most of the time, they don't have to resort to violence because actually most of the people they run into are very helpful. Especially after after about 2 months, they start going back to places that they went to with Livingstone. So people recognise them. They get given food and hunting rights. People offer to guard their things. However, they do start running into local conflicts, civil wars, and they get pretty worried that people are going to think it's a bad omen for them to be carrying a dead body around. To be fair, it's not a sign of someone doing great. And so they get really worried that someone will try and take the body from them. So what they do is they make a fake body out of grass and bury that, and then they fold Livingstone up and put him in a trunk and cover him with papers so that he's secretly in there, and they leave the decoy body in Africa. Finally, they reach Bagamoyo in Tanzania, where they're able to get a boat to Zanzibar and thence to England. If you try and recreate that journey today, Google Maps will tell you it's 325 hours walk. And that's no sleep, no food shortages, no local conflicts, and with modern roads. Back then, it was 1,400 miles, and it took them 9 months. In Zanzibar, they managed to get a telegram to the Royal Geographical Society, who were the people who'd sent Livingstone on this journey. They tell them that Livingstone is coming home. Chuma and Susie follow along a little bit later, and they go to the Royal Geographical Society, and they meet a guy called Horace Waller, who is the one in charge of compiling all of Livingstone's notes into something that's fit to publish. So Chuma and Susie are there for 4 months deciphering Livingstone's notes, and in the final published edition, Waller gives them credit for being the reason that a lot of his notes have survived. I only found out about this story because I was studying for my tour guiding qualification, and one of the places they test you on is Livingstone's grave in Westminster Abbey. And at the beginning, a little tricky to read here, but you'll have to trust me, it says, "Brought by faithful hand over land and sea." So I wondered, what does that mean? Faithful hands? Whose hands? And it turns out there's this incredible story under there, literally under your feet. I'm not breaking new ground on this. Chuma and Susie's stories have been known about for a while. They were relatively well celebrated during their lifetimes. It was all very well catalogued. All that work had already been done for me. It was just a question of going to look for it. So I encourage you to find your own historical mavericks. Crack open a random old newspaper, look up names on graves, open your grandma's photo album. History is not just the stories of kings and queens and battles. It is the story of all of us. And out of the billions of people that have ever been, there's hundreds of thousands of, and I say this with love, proper weirdos. Stories about bizarre child-raising experiments and gender-swapping sword fighters and dead body hikes. History is weirder than you think.